Jack drives through the mountains for 3 hours to reach a remote hotel. He meets with Stuart for an interview about the winter caretaker position at the hotel. The job is simple enough: keep the building heated and repaired while it's not in use for 5 months. The isolation, however, not so simple. Stuart warns him that the last caretaker suffered a mental breakdown, murdered his family, and then killed himself. Jack's son Danny talks with his imaginary friend Tony, who seems to predict the future by saying that Jack will be calling to tell Wendy he's got the job. Danny asks Tony why he doesn't want to go to the hotel, but he won't tell Danny. When Danny insists, he receives an ominous vision. Jack and his family head to the hotel. They arrive at the hotel where the last of the staff are packing things away. In the games room, Danny is watched by the twins from his vision. Jack and Wendy are shown around and taken to the staff quarters and their room. Wendy and Danny are shown around the hotel kitchen and the meat freezer. While Dick talks to Wendy, Danny hears his voice in his head asking him if he'd like ice cream. Dick gets ice cream for Danny. He tells him about the ability he and his grandmother shared, allowing them to communicate telepathically. She called it shining. He asks Danny questions about his shining, and Danny tells Dick that Tony told him not to talk about it. He explains to Dick that Tony tells him things, but like a dream, he can't always remember everything. Dick asks him if Tony ever told him anything about the hotel, which prompts Danny to ask if something bad happened, specifically in room 237. Dick tells him nothing happened there, despite telling Danny firmly to stay out. They begin settling into their new lives, while Jack still suffers from his writer's block. Wendy and Danny find a massive hedge maze and wander around. Danny trikes around the hotel again and finally rides past room 237, where he stops to look a little closer. He tries opening the door with no luck. Wendy goes to check in with Jack, but he's short and snappy with her. She says she'll come back later to bring sandwiches, which sets him off. Jack swears at her, saying she's setting him back, and tells her not to come back into his workspace, ever. Wendy and Danny play in the fresh snow while Jack stares at them menacingly. Wendy discovers that their telephone is down and radios the Rangers to ask about it. The officer tells her it's common for the lines to remain inoperative throughout the winter. Danny runs into the twins again and they invite him to play with them.
Forever and ever and ever.
Terrified, Danny turns to Tony, who reassures him it's not real. Danny goes into their apartment where his father beckons him to come over. Danny senses that his father is not himself, but Jack tells him he's just tired. When Danny asks if he likes the hotel, Jack tells him he loves it and wishes they could stay forever and ever and ever.
You would never hurt Mom or me, would you?
Jack immediately thinks Wendy must have said something to Danny. Danny plays in the hall when he gets a funny feeling and notices that room 237 is open. Wendy suddenly hears some strange noises and moves to investigate. Jack cries out in his sleep and looks around frightened after she wakes him. He tells her that he dreamed he murdered her and Danny.
But I didn't just kill you. I cut you up into little pieces.
Danny approaches slowly. Wendy tells him to play in his room, but he doesn't respond. Upon closer inspection, Wendy notices Danny sucking his thumb and grab marks on his neck. She accuses Jack of abusing him since no one else is in the hotel. Angered, Jack wanders around the deserted hotel. He sits at a bar and imagines a bartender, Lloyd, standing behind it. Lloyd pours him a stiff drink and listens while Jack unloads his troubles. He fears that Wendy will always blame him, but admits that he did hurt Danny once before, by accident. Just then, Wendy runs in claiming that a crazy woman is on the roof, saying she must be the one who tried to strangle Danny. Dick watches TV reporting severe winter storms. Airports have been shut down and many highways are blocked. He suddenly goes into a trance while Danny looks very unwell. Jack searches the notorious room and sees a person behind the bathtub curtain. Jack seems disturbingly aroused by the woman who attacked his son. They move in for a little action and things get spicy. The young woman suddenly turns old and rotten, literally. She walks after Jack, laughing hysterically as Danny continues shaking. When Jack comes back to the apartment, he lies to Wendy, saying he saw nothing. Wendy points out that someone must be here since Danny got bruised. Jack tries to convince Wendy that Danny did it to himself. In bed, Danny sits traumatized as he hears Wendy tell Jack that she thinks they need to get Danny out of here. Jack flies into a fit of rage, accusing her of creating problems.
I have let you fuck up my life so far, but I am not gonna let you fuck this up.
Jack leaves and throws a temper tantrum throughout the hotel. After his trance, Dick calls the Rangers asking if they could radio the hotel to check in. Jack imagines an elegant party at the hotel and orders another beverage from Lloyd. He refuses payment for the drink and also declines to say who's buying. A waiter bumps into Jack, spilling a couple of drinks all over him. Grady helps Jack clean off his jacket in the washroom. Jack believes Grady to be the previous caretaker and asks him where his wife and daughters are. Grady assures him they're around somewhere. Jack states that he is determined Grady is the caretaker who murdered his wife and daughters. Grady responds telling him that Jack is and has always been the caretaker. Afterwards, Grady tells him that Danny is trying to bring in an outside party into their situation. With extreme prejudice, he tells him that the man is a cook. He also tells Jack about Danny's powerful talent that he's using against Jack's will. Grady puts the idea into Jack's head that perhaps he should punish his wife and son for being naughty and interfering. He continues saying his girls tried to burn the hotel down and he corrected them. When his wife tried to stop him, he corrected her also. Jack hears the Rangers trying to radio in and removes a piece ending the transmission. Dick flies and drives through the horrendous weather trying to reach the hotel. Wendy holds a bat looking around the hotel for Jack. In his typewriter, she finds a page that repeats a single line over and over. Unnerved, she finds his alleged manuscript, however it seems Jack really ran out of ideas for his book. Jack watches Wendy snooping through his pages.
How do you like it?
Wendy tells him that she can't remember what she came to talk about. Danny telepathically hears their conversation while having visions. She tells him that Danny might need to see a doctor. While Jack mocks everything she says, Jack seethes as he tells her he is responsible and obligated to look after the hotel until the agreed date. Wendy tells Jack to stay away while she lamely swings her bat. Jack threatens to bash her brains in, slowly approaching, telling her to give him the bat. Wendy clobbers his noggin, knocking him out. She drags Jack into the storage room and locks him inside. Jack lays it on thick, pretending to have a concussion after being hit on the head. Wendy tells him that she's going to leave and get a doctor, and he laughs, saying she has a big surprise coming her way. Wendy runs out to check the snowcat and discovers that it's been sabotaged. Jack has a snooze in his new home when he's awoken by a knock. Grady is back, teasing Jack for being unable to keep his woman in line. Determined to prove himself, Jack asks for one more chance to do things right. After giving his word, the door unlocks. Dick drives down the snow-covered roads, nearing the hotel. Danny looms over his mom, repeating the words, "red rum." He picks up the knife and a tube of lipstick. Wendy continues having a blissful rest while Danny writes "red rum" or, well, murder on the door. Danny starts yelling "red rum" loudly, finally waking Wendy. She sees the word murder in the reflection. Just then, Jack starts axing the door down. Wendy and Danny rush into the bathroom. She fiddles with the window to escape. Wendy sends Danny out the window, but is unable to squeeze through herself.
Little pigs, let me come in.
Wendy grabs her knife and prepares to defend herself. She screams and pleads with him.
Here's Johnny.
She slices his hand when he tries to unlock the door. Dick rolls in, stalling Jack as he hears the engine. Poor helpless Danny finds a little cupboard to hide in as Jack skulks around. Wendy makes an escape while Jack is distracted. Dick finds the front door open and enters the hotel. He calls out, looking for the residents, while apprehensively walking through the building. Limper Man Jack pulls off a sneak attack, killing Dick while Danny screams in pain. Jack follows his scream and finds Danny scampering away. Wendy looks around, calling out quietly for Danny when she hears a racket. In a private room, she finds a bare-ass man giving head to some rando. Out in the cold, the chase between Danny and Limper continues. Danny runs into the maze, but Limper expertly tracks his footprints. Wendy finds Dick's body and is stalked by an enthusiastic partygoer. Sharp as a tack, Danny realizes that he's being tracked and backtracks in his steps. He detours and covers his new trail. Wendy reaches the infamous elevators and the blood pours down before her eyes. Danny hides as Jack reaches the end of his footsteps, raging and yelling. After Jack wanders off, Danny apprehensively moves out of hiding and runs away, escaping the maze. He finds his mom and they rush into the vehicle brought by Dick. The engine sputters a few times, but surprisingly actually starts. Limper loses his mind further, if that's even possible, as he screams incoherently. He aimlessly wanders the maze until reaching his final form, Jack's statue. Hold on, it looks like Jack really was the old caretaker, or at least he was there.